Hello and welcome to the DoneJS contributors meeting. Today is Friday, December 7th, 2018. My name is Jason Lahara, coming to you from Long Beach, California. We got a bunch of people on the stream today. Do you guys want to say hello? Hello, Justin. Good to see you.
What's up, Jason? Good to see you.
Hey, Kevin?
Hey, Jason. It's cold here.
It's cold? Yeah, it's cold here. It was raining. Big storm yesterday. Got into the probably 40s. Big storm. Matthew.
14 this morning, Jason. 14.
Oof. How's
it going, everyone?
Hey, good to see you. Hey, Sheriff.
Hey, Jason. Hi, everyone.
Good. How's Algeria treating you?
It's good.
All good? Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Thomas.
Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. I like your flag in the background.
Thank you.
All right, so today we're going to talk about what we've been working on over the last couple of weeks and give demos of that stuff, and then what we're gonna be working on over the next 2 weeks. We'll do those combined. Justin, do you want to get us started with some CanJS stuff?
I'd love to. So CanJS, since in the last 2 weeks, we've had now 4 releases of CanJS. Again, you can see our release notes in this releases. 231 releases. That's insane. So in the last 2 weeks, we had 5.17 and 5.17.2. Those were mostly, well, 5.17.1 was a lot of additional IE fixes to make IE. We kind of got IE working, but then we realized some of our tests were being skipped. So we fixed a whole bunch of other things in IE. IE is, I would say, as of 5.17.1, a lot more stable, really at this point, ready to be used. 5.17 was something minor. Kevin fixed to make the debugging tools work better. And then came 5.18 last night. 5.18, the big features, it includes lazy eval for stash expressions. This makes it, well, if you're doing something where not every single thing is going to be read, such as like the AND operator in stash, this will do less work up front, which will improve performance, and also just, I think, work the way people would expect it. There's a few other minor fixes to stash. If you had a switch inside each, that's fixed now. There's also another one where like partials weren't working right. If the value that was being passed to a partial was changing, that was broken. Can define had and along with kind of can query logic had a bunch of fixes around schemas weren't working correctly in all situations, and also sorting custom types weren't working. So if you were doing those kind of things and stuff wasn't working for you, that should work now. Big thanks to Matt for fixing this one. Essentially, if you had something like this and every time someone clicked on this button, you were trying to set my scope prop to 1, the string 1 in this case, this wasn't working because essentially we created an observable for this button's value, and the button's value every time you click isn't actually changing, so we're never emitting values. So he actually introduced a whole new concept besides like essentially CanJS supports property values and like kind of permanent values. Now there's more of an emitter value that an emitter observable that this creates, and it will just keep emitting the string 1 over and over and over, and you had to do a whole bunch of other changes, other places to make this work. So that was really, really good to see. I fixed yesterday as part of this, if you had a component that was emitting some event, like through dispatch, scoped.event wasn't actually working. That is fixed. I think Sheriff fixed this one. If you had a number in here, this wasn't working. And everything else is more or less, trying to see if there's any like super significant one that would affect what people were doing. This one might cause upgrade problems, but I highly doubt it. If you're building if you built custom observables, the order that on was trying to attach to things, like essentially on calls different event binding strategies underneath, that changed. Should not affect anybody. This was to fix the event problem here. Trying to see if there's anything else. Stuff like this was breaking in Stash if you had if the context was a primitive for these functions, that was breaking, or I think it was on the join it was breaking, something like that. And that's it, but a whole bunch of fixes in 5.18. Yeah, wow, we're getting so high. 5.18, so please check that out. And then I, of course, realized I left a warning in and then quickly released 5.18.1. Anyways, okay, so I've been working can't stash binding for my demo now. I've been working on can't stash bindings. I just want to show a few examples. I'm doing it kind of how I did stash and just a whole bunch of use cases over and over and over again. And one I want to talk about is that I just fixed that wasn't even really working before, is how to listen to when a component dispatches an event and then do something. So this code pen, essentially I have a random number generator that just dispatches a number event with a value when connected callback runs. And I can listen to when that's producing number events. And now, because of the fix, I can get that event and then read the value. One change that I made is like scope.arguments actually would have given you no arguments before, even though this really should have one argument. We didn't want to break backwards compatibility because there were cases where that would have arguments. So now there's this new scope.args. And scope.args, the first arg should be the event that's being published, and then I should be able to get to read the value from it, and it should work just how it was before. But if there were other arguments, like I was dispatching A for some reason, these are the additional arguments past the event. Now I can read that. So scope.args is really going to be the kind of more future-proof, correctly working way to read the arguments any event was dispatched with, including DOM events. So look out for that. And that is it for me.
Sweet. Thank you, Justin. Kevin, do you want to show off some DevTool stuff?
Yeah, sure. All right, so I've been working on making some improvements to the view model editor. That's kind of one of the main things I'm doing. So we've been adding type names to the view model editor. So basically, in this example, I have this list of hobbies here, which is I can make this a little bit bigger, which is a defined list with the name hobbies, and each item in that list is a hobby, and then those have a name property, which is this hobby name. Anyway, this is kind of just to show this stuff off. But if I go in here and select this, now we can see those things here in the view model editor. So we can see this is a hobbies list, and it's got a link to 2, and then each of these is a hobby, and then each of those is a hobby name, and they have their normal value.
Would you mind, sorry to interrupt you, would you mind bumping up the text size on your screen?
Yes. How's that?
That's better, thanks.
Cool. So yeah, this works for things like define maps and define lists that you name yourself. It also works for other things that we name internally. So like in this example, if I pull this up, oops. Let's see this one. We can see, like, you can see promises now, that you can see their promises instead of just seeing that these are objects. So I think this is gonna help a lot. Other than that, I've made some small performance improvements, cleaned up like a memory leak that we had when you change pages to multiple pages that have CanJS. We cleaned that up a little bit better, and we're improving the performance of how this data is refreshed. So I'm working on that also. And then the other thing that I worked on is prototype for the panel. The next thing that we're going to be working on is like a top level panel for CanJS, similar to how like React and every other framework does their dev tools. They have this panel up at the top. So this is kind of let me make this a little bit bigger. This is the prototype for what this is, the final version of what this is going to look like. So you can kind of see here on the left, we're going to have this tree of components. On the right, we'll have these drop downs for the view model editor and for this breakpoints panel. So yeah, this is what this is going to look like, and we're going to start working on this here next week. So look out for that to come in a future version of DevTools.
I want to say that looks great. I'm happy to see that it looks like Chrome's kind of, it's a little bit different than Chrome, but it's so like fits in with it. So that's good to see.
Yeah, the component tree is a little more colorful than Chrome's normal elements tree, but otherwise, Ryan did an awesome job stealing all this or copying this the look and feel of the drop downs and stuff like that. So I think Ryan Wilson, he's awesome. He did all the CSS.
That's a good plug for Bitovi's design services. If you also want to have good CSS in your project, Bitovi.com, there's a contact link in the upper right.
That was awesome, Jason.
Nice job, Jason.
Thanks, guys. Matthew, do you want to talk about follow-up from what we discussed 2 weeks ago or last week? You want to show off portals?
Oh, yeah.
Portals or DoneJS.
Yes, let's do all of the above. DoneJS 3 is on NPM, which is cool. If you do NPM this tag OS, I know people love seeing this. Latest is 3.1, and there's a migration guide. If you go to guides, migrate to DoneJS 3 on DoneJS.com, that will explain how to migrate. So if you have a DoneJS 2 app, you can run DoneJS upgrade, and that does it gets all your latest dependencies. It will run any migration scripts that we have for CanJS 5. And it'll just make sure you're on latest. It doesn't obviously make sure your app works. You're going to have to do that yourself. So this migration guide kind of goes through the steps we recommend. Definitely make sure your tests are passing before you try to upgrade, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to determine if upgrading has caused any issues. But yeah, once you do that, DoneJS upgrade will upgrade you, and then you can just go through. There's a steel migration guide and a can migration guide. And once you've gone through both of those, you should have a working application. So it's pretty simple. So yeah, that's DoneJS 3. Please check it out. The article should be coming soon. Working on that now, and talking about other ways to promote DoneJS 3 now that it's here. But DoneJS 3 is really nice. We've talked about it a lot on these community hangouts, but the incremental rendering is really a big game changer for us. I'm hoping that it's going to drive some traffic towards us. We'll see how that goes. So anyways, DoneJS 3 is out. One thing we talked about last week was the idea of how to handle, let's see if I can find the forum post. There's this forum post about inverting templates. Oh, there's people messaging you about. I forget it. Inverted templates. So, can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, inverted templates idea is basically the main use case is how do we handle putting things into the head. Because a lot of times what happens is that the individual page component will want to modify the title. Oftentimes there's like kind of these metadata that's used for like social networks like Facebook that they want you put into the head, and it's cumbersome in DoneJS apps a little bit. Is that you kind of have this section where you insert your component, but then you're gonna have to like have some repetitive code to put into the title. So the thing we're trying to solve is here, how do we give this power to the actual to the actual component, so that we don't have to put all this in the index.stash. Just the individual component can, insert that stuff itself. So we had a few different solutions, and we wound up going with portals. What a portal is, it's a helper where you give it an element, and instead of inserting the content kind of here inside of this template, inside of this fragment, it instead inserts this inside of the document.head in this case. You could also portal. Another big use case would be modals, like modal windows. And well, those are the two that I usually think about. But anyways, that's how it works. And this way, the component has control over doing this. The reason why I liked portals versus kind of the other solutions is that by having it inside of your view, you can like wrap this in a conditional, like only portal to the head if some condition is true or something. It just kind of gives complete control over the component. So we've implemented this. I implemented this yesterday. It's not out yet. It's in a pull request. Let's see if I can find the pull request. And I don't know what I was going to talk about aside from, because I really only have tests to show off now. But yeah, it's going to be coming into the next minor release of Can Stash. So this is really cool because I think it's going to cause us to rethink about how we do DoneJS apps a little bit. One of the big use cases for Done Auto Render is that it provided a way to define stuff that's in the head. And now that if you can do that directly inside of a component, there's less of a need for Done Auto Render. Now, Done Auto Render does wire up reattachment for when you do server-side rendering. So that's kind of the other big use case. But with Think or Remember rendering, you don't need that either because it kind of does its own reattachment stuff. So that's going to be an interesting thing to think about. Maybe by the next DoneJS release, we'll have something more of a story there. But it's something to look forward to. But anyways, portals should be coming hopefully pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that.
Matthew, could this somehow work for status code too? Like, I mean, you would have to have something else to like render it into, but we could create like a fake element and then just read the inner content of that element. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't do that in the view, but like you could do, if promise is rejected, portal to
a response code. Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm just thinking of all the other things that like, where we want to inject information back upwards to DoneJS, and that's really the other common one.
Yeah, I guess it's one way to think about it. Right now, it does expect an element. I don't know. Maybe
create like a fake, just unattached.
If there was some type of interface that it recognizes, and then you can pass stuff other than elements somehow.
We're just passing an unattached element. Just have like DoneJS like status element, and then its contents, and then we just
use the text content as a status code or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, potentially. Potentially, I hadn't thought of that use case. Leave it to Justin to think of weird use cases for things. But yeah, it's interesting. But I'm very interested because I think Done Auto Render does present kind of a cognitive. It's harder to explain to CanJS users what Done Auto Render is and why they should use it. So yeah, anything that leads us towards just having components and your entry point is a component, and that's how CanJS works. I think that'd be an improvement. So, anyways, I think that's all for me.
Sweet, thank you, Matthew. Sheriff, Do you want to talk about some bugs that you've been squashing?
Yes, of course. So I was working on the issue of the can attribute encoder, which was not encoding the numbers or letters after numbers like this binding here, where the binding was wrong. So instead of this, it should display this emoji with hearts in his eyes. And the trick to fix this quickly for users was they encode this manually, and it will be fixed. But we will not let the users do this manually, and we fix this in the release of 5.18. And as you see here, it's working now by fixing the regex of the regular expression of the binding, where we added the numbers for the camel case for encoding. That's the bug the bug that was shipped in CanJS, and I'm working on other bugs that are not yet shipped, like the bug of the deep assign, etc. And for the next week, I will be animating a workshop Saturday, December 15, about DoneJS 3 here in Algeria, in the hometown Annaba. That's my statue and my demo.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I would highly encourage you to go through it like 2 days before you do it.
Yeah.
And make sure it's all working.
Sure. Thank you.
Sheriff, could you also post a link wherever people could find out about that? I also want a link to find out more information about the workshop. If you could, like, post it in the forum somewhere or whatever, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's not yet published, but I'll contact the organizer to have more information about it.
Sweet.
So, okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, do you want to talk about some stuff that you've been working on? You are muted, FYI.
So
we can't see your... Yeah, there we go.
Mostly I've been working on just improving inline documentation. The most recent one is can write push state. Some interesting stuff that I ended up finding is that can write push state, when it's set up, adds an event adds a delegate listener that ends up capturing all of the A tag links and applying almost this decorator to can route push state and can route replace state that allows these to almost become, allows like pushing to push state and replace state to almost become an observable. Dispatch handlers is just calling a mix-in from can query, what is it? Can query.
It's like can event queue.
Yeah, can event queue value mix-in. And that just really looks like this here. The incremental improvements that we've been doing is really nice. We managed to get rid of 2 dependencies in can route push state, can key tree, and can, what was the other one?
I don't remember the other one.
I don't remember at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, just
Queues, kin queues, because it was
yeah,
called.
yep, it was canned queues. It's just those sort of small improvements that I've been working on, refactoring, adding in more documentation, etc.
Sweet. Yeah, and working on some of the more of the same these next couple weeks.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, I think that's it for demos. Let me stop presenting you. Sorry, Thomas. I think that's it for demos. Let's go to topics. I know I have one that might be a little inside baseball, so I want to save it for the end. Justin, you posted some topics too. Do you want to get into those?
Yeah, I kind of already talked about
the releases, but maybe standardizing events.
Yeah, this one's not. I mean, it's kind of related to what I was already talking about in terms of the demo. The basic idea is that, and I wish I'd written up this a little bit better, but essentially CanJS now has a lot of varieties of ways to do event listening, and like to give some examples, there's on key value, there's also on event, there's add event listener, which is essentially what the DOM is using. On key value does not produce an event object. It's supposed to be called back with 2 arguments, but on event is supposed to be called with an event. All of this is weird and confusing, and then you also bring in the other axes, which is like single value observables. Well, they just kind of are published with like a value. There's no event object at all. So I think that's odd, and I would like to. And then also, I was even thinking about this earlier. And I'm just going to make a note for myself. There's patches. Like when CanJS has an idea of what a patch object looks like. Here? No. Here? No. Here? No. Dang it. Maybe it's in. Oh, here's for the patch formats. There's well, this is documented somewhere in here. There's kind of the patch format as well, which is a whole other kind of way of describing like something that has changed, and that's what events are, anyways. Which is like, here's something has changed. Let's describe that. Oh, this is the old. That's why I need to update to the new way of doing things. This patch. There we go. Oh, it's symbol. It isn't can symbol. It's just the types. So here we have all these different types of patch things. It's all. I think there's like a unified theory of like all of this essentially. So it's like, you know, if a property just changed, you should get something that looks like a set patch object, and that should be your event object, and should have the new key and old key values, and should all just kind of be consolidated to the exact, like, this is the format everything should be. Also, I think what helps with this is that, you know, now that we have destructuring, before, you know, it made a lot of sense to dispatch with like the new value and old value, because if that's almost always what you wanted, destructuring makes it a little bit easier to get those things, feels a little less heavyweight, which to me makes it feel like we should just do an event object everywhere. That's all we ever dispatch with. It's also much easier in Stash to get that instead of arguments. This would probably be a breaking change, though we could probably implement something like this in 5 and then just start migrating everybody to this, right? Make on just showing this everywhere and make sure that, like, the old value and new value, I don't know. This is just an idea that we should start consolidating around a unified format, probably similar to what Patches gives, and then start kind of moving people moving maybe 5.0 to that, and then maybe that's like a eventual discarding the old stuff is a 6.0 breaking change, but it hopefully shouldn't affect user code too much. I don't know. People have thoughts about this.
Does this handle the case? There's two cases I guess I'm thinking of. One is how define map value, how.
Yes, the last set, how last set is like
different. Yeah, there's one of them that's different.
On or listen to gives you. Yes, this would handle that because then essentially everything would work. There'd be an event object, and you would. That's how even single value observables would produce an event object with like their new value and old value.
Right. And I think there was something similar with can element. I know we haven't really worked on this yet, but with can element, how there's a difference between properties and
you're exactly right. Can element needs actual DOM events to be dispatched, and they are events. So it would also fit in very well with that. So it's kind of, in some ways what it would be doing is migrating us away from the on value, off value, on key value. Those are kind of like the dominant way.
Okay, that's the part I didn't quite understand. Are you saying we get rid of on key value?
It would not, it would still be supported, but like what you would make is like can observation would favor some other symbol, maybe even on event, in over on key value. Right, so you would have, just right now, by the way, on key value and on event are on all of our types already. It's just like switching it to like operate on one over the other. It's kind of default to on event. And it possibly can even work on both, but then eventually it's like, you know, maybe we could get rid of in the future on key value because it's just like tech that we don't have to carry around. And on key event produces events in a patch form that's this well-recognized form. And from the event itself, we can tell what it's like telling us. So even like patches might, you know, be, you know, basically there is less even need for on patches because on event would be these patch objects, except patches can dispatch multiple mutations in one collective kind of, can patch an array, essentially an array of changes, which patches can do. I don't know. This is.
Yeah, I would expect on patches to be noisier. That's the only thing I'm wondering is like on key value is something that I don't know if users do, but they might. And so make sure that you're going to get the same. You're going to get the same.
Oh, you're right. You're definitely right. On patches would essentially be the basically all events is what you're essentially listening to. So on patches might still need to like exist as like a thing, although maybe you can pass on event like some special thing that's essentially saying give me everything, but or you call it without a single, you know, a string is the first key, and then that effectively is on all events. You just pass it a function, and that's effectively on patches. I'm not totally concerned about this versus this. To me, it's more just like we have a million other things, and we have all these different formats, and the last set problem, and then you brought up a great point with the can element. I think that objects as like the only argument makes sense, and then consolidating that with what we have as notation of patches anyways makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, my only concern would be that how is the migration story?
Yeah,
because a lot of people are using the eval format in their code. So.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. My hope is that you can just we would need some other kind of thing people can migrate to, and not ideally. We've kind of already ran out of all the terms bind on whatever, right? And we probably need another user-facing listening, like listen or something to give people. But actually, I take it back. For on, it's not so bad because right now it gets called with an event. It's really only last set and like the single value observables. So what you do is you just say, hey, the migration is start getting, whatever these were, it's actually pretty easy. If this was called new name, well then you just alias like value as new name, right? You just do, what is it? Is it value colon, or is it the other way around? I only ever destructure it this way. I never like do the other form where like, you can make value called new name up here. I think that is an easy migration script to give people. I think.
But it's the ones where people are using event, right? Wouldn't that be?
No, but there's always going to be an event object.
Yeah, but you can't destructure and also name it event.
Well, okay, sure. If they called it event, then we just have to like write it out here as like variables then, right? So you just do new name equals event dot value. I mean, it's not.
Could code mod it, probably.
Yeah, this is definitely. I mean, I would just say like this is relatively easy to code mod.
Yeah, it's not in Stash.
Huh?
It's not in Stash, so yeah, it's code moddable.
Yeah.
But.
And I think it's migratable too. It's like people, we can even, we could just show all of this everywhere in our code base, and then like as people start using it, and we can even give warnings. Hey, if this function is passed to an on and has arguments.length greater than 1, well, warn, you should be reading those from the event object. So I think it's, I don't know, I just think it would help the code base. This is like CanJS tech debt a little bit, but I think it'd be useful. I
mean, it'll help users too, to know what to use. Should
I
use listen to? Should I use on key value? Should I use on bind? People do ask that, and I'm like, whatever you want. No, but yeah,
people to listen to right now for sure. Those are the things, and I would probably even consolidate to something like listens to that has all of the power of listen to, because listen to you can still do the same thing that on does. Anyways, cool. Next topic.
Sweet. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to talk about? Nope. Okay. I'll take a few minutes to talk about what I've been doing. I've been working on redesigning the CanJS homepage. Right now, our bounce rate isn't where we'd like it to be. So we want to improve the homepage to make sure that we convert more new users. So what I've been going, the CanJS homepage, canjs.com. So what I've been working on is not any like design related things or actual like redesign. I've been working on figuring out what our value proposition is, going through what other frameworks are doing worse than what we're doing. I think the list is long. And figuring out how CanJS provides a solution for those things. The second part, which I think might be good for us to talk about, is kind of our audience, who we want to be like selling to on our homepage, who are our ideal customers, or who are the like customers that we get the most value from. Because that, to me, that can range from trying to market to CTO, head of engineering types, to on the other end of the spectrum, just going for popularity and kind of being the audience being like the average developer, new developers, or that sort of thing. So I know I've talked to Justin about this some. I just kind of wanted to maybe open up that conversation, see what thoughts other people had, and I know if I can also answer questions about the stuff that I've already started working on.
I guess I'll give my feelings about it. So
sure.
for a while I thought like let's like 3.0 was definitely let's appeal to like a more either a higher level engineer or more like CTO type person who's really longevity focused and stuff like that, and that's why we did everything for 3.0 to break it up into a million repositories to give us like long-term flexibility of CanJS. And lately, I mean, I've very much reversed my thinking about it. There's like a Japanese business philosophy, which is like, I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's something like essentially the best product becomes cheapest in the long term, because if you, and I think there's a different application in terms of open source, but it's like the best product becomes cheapest because like so many people start using it, then you reach economies of scale, and then like it becomes cheapest. I think there's almost like the opposite in open source, which is like the most popular, or the easiest to use framework for like beginners becomes the best. is really how it works, because if you have something that's really good, but it's not easy to use and not like appealing, like sure, there's a few people that use it, but like you'll have a million other people using the easier thing to use. And those people will get better, they'll appreciate the product, they'll contribute to it, and then that product will be better. So I think it's just like a law of nature now that you have to appeal to, you're just smartest at appealing towards like making it as easy for use as like the lowest common denominator developer as possible.
Which is interesting now because there's so many people coming into JavaScript. Like lowest common denominator can mean like anyone who's getting started in like web development, anyone who's coming from other languages, who has been doing other like, server-side stuff or whatever, and is starting to get into the like SPA world. Even lowest common denominator for us could still be a wide range of like technical skill.
For sure. But I think it's more about like, to me then it becomes about use case, like siloing a little bit. And I've talked about this with you and other people here. For CanJS, I think the best bet siloing is CRUD apps. Because I think we're like our model layer makes us just extremely effective there. And if it were me, I would finish canned CRUD, and I would just like put like the easiest way to build CRUD apps, make your RESTful, you made your RESTful service, you threw canned CRUD at it, and boom, and then like show, hey, it's easy to then customize and stuff like that. I think that would land for a lot of people have to build CRUD apps, and that's like a use case that everybody knows. Making that as simple and easy to accomplish as possible, I think fits both like huge market potential and in our wheelhouse. Right? It's like the Venn diagram of like things that we can do super well and things people really want. It's like the biggest overlap. That's my feeling.
There's one big missing piece though. It's that we don't do the server side. You can't make a CRUD app without server side.
That is true. You're right in that like someone else has to go to like, you have to do Rails or someone else has to go build that part of it. And yeah, I don't know what to, we could start really hard exploring like integrations with other backend technologies to make that bootstrapping even faster. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad idea. I think it suffers from like the N+1 problem or whatever that like we try to avoid because it's so expensive to like, okay, we're gonna make it for like Rails, now we're gonna make it for Feathers, now Sails, now whatever. But I think that that's you know, I think that's fine. I don't think it's expensive, but not a bad idea.
So if we're going to try to make the case that CanJS is the easiest framework to use, we have this big disadvantage, right? That a lot of people already know some other framework and don't know CanJS. So we kind of have to, do you think it's important for us to make the case that we're either better or that we have some advantage over the thing that people already know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the home page is for.
Yeah, and I think the easiest, like there's lots of people who like don't already know a framework or are coming from just like writing plain JavaScript or jQuery, right? There's a lot of those people out there.
Yeah.
And easiest to me, easiest to use isn't like, some of it is like shallow learning curve compared to something like Angular, where you kind of need to take on TypeScript to understand like their docs. Maybe you don't need to use it, but to understand their docs. We've made huge improvements, and like we don't need a build step. We don't need any additional tools. You can, just load an HTML page. I think that totally plays into us being like easier to get started with compared to other frameworks.
Yeah, so that was kind of my question. Do we just kind of ignore the people that already know some framework and focus on making the case that we're really easy to use if you don't, if you're just getting started, for those people that aren't already in some other ecosystem? Or do we try to do both, try to make both cases?
I mean, both. I mean, I think we should definitely say like, hey, building a CRUD app is easier with CanJS than React or Vue. I mean, especially if you have something like CanCRUD, that's like, should be, you write your model, you call CanCRUD, you put CanCRUD to the page, and it's done. Like, I think we can easily like, have.
What if we? Yeah, if I were going to ease of use, I would go like extreme angle. Like I would have a download, maybe even a zip file that you can download on canjs.com. It comes with HTTP server, and it just loads, it loads an index.html that is a CRUD app. We connect, they have like those like file system databases, those very simple ones or whatever. Like we connect to that, so you got yourself a full CRUD app right there.
You don't even
One
need
install.
like, yeah, you don't even need like a download or anything though, right? Like, I mean, you can start making an app on CodePen or a Glitch or anything. Like there's no.
Yeah, with CanFixture, you don't even need a real database. Yeah. Maybe it saves the local storage or something.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's a huge advantage. And going back to Kevin's point, I don't think we I don't think we have to differentiate between people who don't have background in a specific framework versus people who have already learned something and then feel like learning something new. I know that's just my thought.
My question is, Jason, have you done any? I know you've been writing these things up, but have you like talked with people yet? Are you at that phase yet where you?
Sorry, finish your sentence. Sorry.
Are you at that phase where you've been like, hey, querying people, like, does building CRUD apps really simply, especially like I would do the scaffolding, does that like actually appeal to everybody?
Yeah, not yet, but it's on my to-do list to talk to some people today.
Yeah, because then to me it's all like speculation until like, we start getting some user feedback. If that is like to me there's like two questions to answer, and it's like to me it's like, what are people going to respond to and enjoy is the most important question we have to answer. And then like how to market it and like get them to understand and switch and whatever, like compared to other frameworks, that's like a secondary question. But like we have to really figure out like how we're trying to differentiate and first.
Which I think is totally related to other frameworks, because we're like using CanJS is a relief. It's a breath of fresh air. It's it's something that we want people to desire from if they've had any experience with any other frameworks and then they see CanJS is solving these problems, I think that goes back to what Kevin was saying, is that if our message is like these things that CanJS does better, that people who have used other frameworks can immediately call out for, like, oh yeah, I don't like that about Vue, or I don't like that about Angular, or whatever. I think that totally plays into the messaging. And yeah, next steps are like, I'm trying to like figure these things out so that we can start asking people, start surveying like what kind of messaging like resonates with them. So that's definitely next steps.
Recently coming from React, it would be nice. I mean, after working on it for so long, I know a lot of things that it fixes, but it would be nice to just have side-by-side comparisons. Here's your React code. Here's your CanJS code.
Yeah, we have a comparison page that gets traffic that I need to update, or someone needs to update for like recent versions of Angular and React.
But
totally
I mean,
agree.
But I mean, Jason, is there any doubt in your mind that like our model layer is the biggest differentiator? Like, is that, I mean, to me, I feel like that is the, is there anything else that's like quite as different?
Yeah, I think there are like, obviously like the, probably technically the model layer is probably our like most advanced thing, kind of on a more general level, like on a non-technical level. I think some of the things that set us apart is like having access to us on the forums and Gitter, being able to like get started without CLIs and that sort of thing. We also like, I know there's a lot of non-technical things too. So I'm not sure if like the model layer wins out over everything.
Yeah, I think to me the reason why the model layer wins out is because it like wins out against so many of our potential competitors, right? We're like, if you say, hey, you don't need a CLI to get started, well, you don't need that for Vue. You might not need that for like a few of the other ones, because like you could just do it in the page. So it's like,
yeah, sure. Like technically, no, you don't need a CLI for any of these, but like basically every single framework says start by using our CLI. Like, you know, start by making sure you have Node and npm installed, and then like installing our CLI, and then scaffolding a new project.
Even Vue does it? Really? Like that's how they're, I know they have Nuxt as like a separate project. But
I think their first thing is just a script tag.
Huh?
I think on Vue's website, their first like thing is just a script tag.
You're right. They don't. Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong about that. I'm right about that for Ember, Angular.
Oh yeah, for everybody else. But that's why Vue is so high. Like in some ways, that's why like Vue did. It's just like, hey, we'll just put this little library out, like backbone of, you know, but like, look, you know, it's basically CanJS, and they're like, hey, that's. And
there was a post that went viral like a year ago that was like, replace your jQuery with Vue or whatever, and it was like, you don't need a build. That was like the big thing of that, at least that I first started seeing about Vue.
Yeah. So anyways, I guess my only point is like, you know, that's definitely a strength of ours, but it's one of those strengths where it's like somebody else has that strength too. So then you got to be like, well, okay, but then when you're competing, we're talking about just Vue, where to me the model layer is the one thing where just like, you know, yeah, React has Apollo or something like that, but that's like, it's like consuming much more. It's not as, it kind of fits in better with that lightweight too. It's just our models are unique. And what they provide you, at least for me, is like all those like little make easy a lot of little things that you always have to do on any like professional quality application. And you're not having to carry all this extra state around like you would in a React app, where like, You know, am I saving? Is this promise resolved? All of that stuff times like every single like action that you have to do. Like, you know, if there's 5 different things you have to do, then you have to do like carry 3 times the state. Where for us, there's none of that.
Yeah, I totally agree that that's one thing that sets us apart from like all of the frameworks. But is that relevant if the audience that we're going after on the homepage is like for anyone to be able to like get started easily, or
well,
I don't know.
You can just like get started easily for making CRUD apps. Can that just be it? It doesn't have to be like we're the easiest framework to use in the world. That's not really what I'm arguing for. It's just like we're the easiest way to do this one task that's very common.
So yes, okay. So this has been really good because I hadn't thought about it like the main core audience that we're going after is like people who build CRUD apps. Because like that is one like specific audience to go after.
Yeah, I mean, just just make ourselves just like this. You know, if you're building some crazy like drag drop things like that, of course, JS can do that. But like, all right, fine. You know, you got some very custom data layer, custom whatever crazy app, fine. But if you're just like putting lists on the page that are editable and creating items, like, which again, I would say that even in those complex apps, 90% of all the other screens you're making are CRUD apps, right? Like your settings page, your profile page, like, you know, search landing page, things like that. They're all CRUD They're all CRUD. I think that is.
It's kind of like if you're opening a sandwich shop and you're like, hey, I have every type of sandwich you could ever want, you can get here. People are gonna be like, well, why am I going to eat your sandwich and not just go to Jimmy John's or Subway? But if you say, I only make turkey and Swiss on rye, but it's going to blow your mind at how good my turkey and Swiss on rye is.
And if turkey and Swiss on rye is the most common sandwich in the world,
it's not.
Then you're probably doing well, right?
Jason, did you write this analogy down for the homepage?
Yeah, already got mock-ups and everything.
Cool.
We're also good for, at least DoneJS is very good for e-commerce websites. And those are not exactly CRUD.
Yeah, the other alternative in terms of vision to me, it does seem just more like we just say, hey, we're observables, we're object-oriented observables, that's really nice, and then we just like, we integrate with like every other view layer. And we start just like building integrations with, you know, like we like Ilum and stuff like that, every single other template engine we could put our hands on. We say like, we're the state management, if you like object-oriented state management. And that to me seems like the other most viable approach, but I think that's less, to be honest, I think that's less viable than CRUD, because you're arguing we have this nice observable state management, but how many people like...
Who's that the audience of? Or like,
yeah.
Who...
How many people are like, I really love objects, cool. Now I can use them, you know. I just don't think that lands as strongly as like, can CRUD would land with people. Like, oh, I'm done. Hey, I got a prototype because my server, ideally my server's built. You have a prototype working of your app. You can go between different pages. You know.
So on the observable thing, I think we could make the case that like using our observables is better than using just normal objects, but I don't think we have. I don't think we've made that yet. I mean, we need the metadata that comes with observables to be really useful, and like the dependency graph stuff and things like that, that our observables could really blow people away and make people want to use them instead of normal objects, but we haven't made that case yet.
Yeah, but that's like to me, that's like a two-step thing that we have to nail, right? We have to nail really good debugging tools where you can like trace through your observables and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, you can, that's that other idea where it's like, we talk about like, oh, we're, you know, if everybody on like mutable state, the reason why people don't like it is because they're still using, you know, Roman numerals, and we're going to switch to Arabic decimal, and that's why now multiplication and stuff like that is so much easier. But then we have to like build the dev tools, and then probably, I still think, build integrations into all those other things. So it's like we have to accomplish two, and that's so.
How you use our observables with Redux, like we'd have to, that would have to be easy. I mean, we'd have to, do that. I agree.
Yeah. Which doable. I don't know if that lands as well as.
Depends how cool that demo is of the graphs or whatever.
It'd have to be more than that. It'd have to be that, like, you know, I think the dream where you can see everything.
Yeah.
This has been a good discussion. Thanks, guys. We're going to be talking about this more in the future, too. I'm going to continue to be working on this. We're over time. Anything else before we go? No? Cool. I'll ask anyone who made it to this point, thanks for watching. You've probably already liked and subscribed to our channel, but if you haven't, go ahead and give us at least a thumb up on this video. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more demos and topics, and until next time, see you guys later. Bye.